If you have been enjoying Edinburgh Business Stories and you want to keep up to date with some of the new episodes we've got coming out every other week, then why not subscribe? The stories, the guests we have are absolutely incredible and we wouldn't want you to miss out. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So give us a snapshot, who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I'm John Cox. I'm the Managing Director of Cox Co. Cox Co is, how the best way to put this, we are mortgage brokers, letting agents, estate agents and property investment specialists all under the one roof. Essentially a true turnkey service for buyers, sellers, renters and investors of property across the central belt of Scotland.
Amazing. And, what size of team? You got a couple of offices or what?
No, so we are based centrally from Castle Terrace. We are literally in the shadow of the castle and there's 14 of us.
Great. Amazing. So how did you end up here? Let's go back to the start, from school. Were you always obsessed with property or, what's the story?
So I grew up in a little place called Ellen, just north of Aberdeen, Brewdog country. It is nowadays. Back then it wasn't. I'm a proper northeastern lad. I think I've got rid of a lot of that Aberdonian twang these days, but it does come out every once in a while. Grew up, born and raised in Ellen. I went to school there. My whole background is rugby. I was the biggest in my class in primary school and found out that there was a local rugby team. I had never played rugby in my life, and the boys in the class had come and play rugby, and that was me hooked. And that went on for a 30-year love affair with the game. At 14, that's at high school, I got the opportunity on that work experience to kind of go with the local rugby development officer. And that was it. That was the day I came home that week to mum and said, that's it, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. And committed every last waking minute to become a pro rugby player. And thankfully, at 18, it happened. I moved to Edinburgh straight after school. And my club was Boroughmuir, and I was on one of these sort of backup contracts back then with Edinburgh Rugby, which was the Gunners at the time at Meadowbank. And that started my professional rugby journey. Literally left school, moved to Edinburgh, and I always dreamed to be living in Edinburgh, play for Edinburgh, play for Scotland, get 100 caps, play for the Lions, become a BBC pundit, do the whole thing.
It was all mapped out.
Yeah, that's all I ever wanted.
Yeah.
And there then started my journey into pro rugby, which lasted about 4.5 to 5 years, of which I was a good rugby player. But I then found out quite quickly, then realised quite quickly myself personally that I wasn't going to get that 100 caps. And I wasn't going to be a BBC pundit. I realised that I'm going to have a great rugby career, but I was never going to make it to the levels that I wanted to. So I moved to France at 21, 2 years playing in Edinburgh, moved to a little club called Périgueux in the second division in France and got my head kicked in for a year at 21, which was an amazing experience to go play at that level at that age and learn a new language, a new culture and play some great rugby. But I wanted to get home. I wanted to get back again. I was hoping that there'd be an opportunity back in Scotland for me. And my agent at the time says, nope, the window's firmly shut. You've buggered off. So you're not getting back in straight away. So I signed for Rotherham Titans in the second division in England and didn't go very well for me. It was 50 odd guys in one professional squad. Fell out of favour quite quickly with my South African coach at the time. It just I wasn't enjoying it. I then started skirting with the idea of playing rugby league. I was quite big, but I was quite fast. I was a ball carrier. So I then ventured into the world of rugby league, and that's a whole different story and a conversation, probably for over a few beers than a coffee on a podcast. Long story short, I got some success there. I got capped by Scotland playing rugby league. There was definitely an opportunity there to go and map out a career for myself in league, but being very honest, it wasn't for me. I was this relatively well-spoken, well-educated Scottish lad playing in the northeast of England with a bunch of crazed rugby league lads, and I just felt I didn't fit. It just wasn't for me. My love was rugby union. I wanted to get back to Edinburgh. So I packed my bags, came back to Edinburgh, and at the time decided, right, I'm going to go and get a real job. And I signed for Curry, a local Edinburgh side, where I ended up playing 12 years for Curry, a sort of semi-pro premiership sort of level, and allowed me then to start building my own business. And so came back at 23 years old, tail kind of between my legs a little bit, desperate to make a name for myself in the Scottish Premiership, with the hopes and dreams of potentially going back pro again if Edinburgh would have me. Went to IKEA, bought a desk, put it into my little flat in Slateford, and became a mortgage broker.
All right.
And that's it.
So what? How did you become a mortgage broker then? So you've obviously had a career in sport up until this point, and then what? You have to learn the qualifications of
crazy,
a mortgage.
So my dad's a mortgage broker. My
Yeah.
dad was a mortgage broker all his days, mortgage and insurance. I had a great upbringing. My parents and my brothers, we had a lovely life. I got to watch my dad. He was self-employed all his days. I loved what he did. Didn't really want to work for him too much, but I loved, he gave us a great life. I also seen their ups and downs, through 80s, 90s and so on, with different peaks and troughs in the financial world. But I know and I knew that he was a very, very good mortgage broker and really good insurance broker, and I knew that he made good money from that. And at 23, I thought, well, I want to do the same.
Okay.
So I basically got into mortgage brokering here in Edinburgh and was desperately keen to build my own book. And it worked out very well to start with. It was great fun. I was working from home, getting to play and train like a professional rugby player, if I'm honest. It took me probably 2 years before I realised that I needed to actually start getting up in the morning and doing some work. I would get up and go to the gym. I would eat and train like a pro rugby player, and then do a few hours a day on my computer, try to play at being a mortgage broker. And it did probably, I would say, 18 months to 2 years before I really reined myself in and concentrated on my profession.
So at this point, your dad's in Ellen, and
Yep.
you're down in Edinburgh here. And so is he training you to become?
So he had a mortgage brokerage in Aberdeen.
Yes.
So he was going from Ellen back into Aberdeen, running that brokerage. I was handing all my business in via his brokerage as a
Got
self-employed
it.
broker.
Okay.
So he had a business called Mortgage Arrangement Services.
Yeah.
Does what it says in the tin.
Yeah, fair enough.
And ran that for years and years. And as the book started to grow in Edinburgh, it made sense for us at the time. We were doing a lot of buy-to-let lending between his Aberdeen office, our Edinburgh office. We had a lot of opportunities to potentially take on properties to manage. A lot of my landlord clients, just say I was doing my buy-to-let mortgages for in Edinburgh, would say, John, great job on the buy-to-let mortgage, but who would you advise to manage this flat that I've just bought? And that was when the entrepreneurial hat came on. I said, me, let's manage your flats for you. Spoke to my dad, and the rest was kind of history. It kind of blew up. We set up a second business with my older brother at the time. And between this partnership we had, myself, my dad, and my brother, we set up a letting business called MAS Property, Mortgage Arrangement Services Property. Doesn't quite make sense, but the brokerage there we changed to MAS, and we had MAS Property, these two different businesses. But it came really obvious to me, certainly in that first couple of years, that we had two different brokerages, if you will, two different books. We also had a letting agency that was flying between two different cities. I felt it was becoming an HMRC's auditing dream, looking at what we had. So long story short, we kind of dragged Dad kicking and screaming into this amalgamation of the businesses, and spent a lot of money with a local marketing firm here in Edinburgh and put the name above the door. And that's where Cox Co was born. So about 11 years ago, Cox Co became this mortgage brokerage letting agency that covered the east coast of Scotland.
Amazing. You mentioned around that realization where you're like, I wasn't going to make it. I think I'm really intrigued by that. Can you talk more about the realization of that and how you came to it?
Very difficult. I'm really hard-headed, and my parents weren't into rugby, my parents weren't into sport and so on, so I got into it, and I never really had a mentor. I had coaches that would help me and so on, but I was making a lot of my own decisions. Look back at it now, I don't regret it, but I probably made some decisions I shouldn't have made. I probably should have knuckled down and taken certain contracts, or I probably should have just worked harder for certain coaches and so on, and I never. I probably did make a few mistakes. I wanted to come back to Edinburgh to prove myself and get myself back in the shop window with Edinburgh, in the hope that that window would open. And funny enough, when we first opened our first office here in Edinburgh in Polwarth, it was only not even 2 years into opening that office, I got offered another contract. And I had to sit down at that point with my family and my partner at the time and really discuss it. And I actually turned it down. So I did have the opportunity to go back into pro rugby, and I said no. I just felt, no, the time is right. This business is kicking off. It's going in the right direction. I was playing great rugby with a great group of people in Curry. We'd just won the Scottish Premiership. Everything was going well. I was enjoying life for the first time in a lot of ways. I was really making good money at a young age with a good little business, playing for a great rugby team with a great bunch of people. Life was good. So, don't get me wrong, I got to pull Edinburgh jersey on a few more times after that. I did a bit of Six Nations cover, World Cup cover, some pre-season bits and bobs with them. So I was always involved at that sort of level. And also a lot of the guys there were my friends growing up. And we played a lot of age group internationals together and so on. So a lot became clients. So still to this day, I manage a lot of the guys who've played for Scotland over the years. I'm very proud that they're friends, but also clients and still in the books with us at Cox Co.
Yeah. But I think that's interesting, isn't it? That realization of your own ceiling. And is it just a glass ceiling? Is it, could I have broken through? But then also the choice to then say, well, maybe if I had pushed it and made these better decisions, then yeah, but.
Get a few beers in me, I'll tell you that I should have played for Scotland, 100%. 100%. There's some days I still think that. I do genuinely think I had the potential to. I think I was a bit too hard-headed. I think I needed a bit more of a mentor through my rugby career. I definitely had the ability. I don't think I was mentally mature enough, if I'm being very, very honest.
Yeah.
And obviously, kind of, as you look at the business now, so 11 years ago, you became Cox Co.
Yep.
And at that point, what was the arrangement then? So your brother, you mentioned, so your brother and your dad involved?
That's right. Yeah.
So who was the leader?
Who wore the trousers?
How did you? How did you structure yourselves, and how's that evolved over the next 11 years?
This is kind of where the next part of the conversation goes. It was a bloody nightmare.
Yeah,
it was a nightmare. My older brother was there for the business. He treated it as a job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Had absolutely zero interest in treating it like a career and being a business owner and growing it. Yeah. He was very, very good at what he did, meticulous, but he was quite a quieter kind of introvert kind of guy. He ran the back room, if you will, kept things ticking along and mediated between me and my dad because we continually butted heads and it was difficult. I had a real vision for where I wanted to see the business going. I was sick to death of half of our clients knowing us as mortgage brokers and the other half knowing us as letting agents and not being able to communicate clearly and not being able to find a way for us to market ourselves in a way that everyone understood that we are able to offer both. I need to be careful how I put this because I would never want to sound as if I've been disrespectful towards my old man because I love him dearly. My dad's your atypical Aberdonian sole trader and he was in it to make money. And he did very well respected businessman and I've learned so much from him over the years. I like to think that it was myself that brought the actual vision to the table to try and grow us into what we are now. And I don't honestly feel my dad ever kind of bought into that to the same level. So we butted heads a lot, and I think he did feel it was his baby. And so I kept trying to remind him over the years that no, this is our baby. Yes, you've brought your book to the table, which was a strong, robust book of many years that brokerage was built in Aberdeen, but nowhere else, Aberdeen. I built the Edinburgh book. And between the three of us, we built the lettings book. So, but yeah, dad, it's the same as anybody in any kind of family business. And I still have that. A lot of people to this day still seem to think, oh yeah, so your dad set this business up for you. Well done, John. It's not the case. It's not the case. And I'll fight that quite strongly. We were butting heads quite a lot pre-COVID. My brother then at that point asked to be bought out of the business. He wanted to go down a completely different path, which he's done and done well for himself.
And is he up in Ellen or?
No, he's in Edinburgh.
He's in Edinburgh. Yeah, okay.
The whole family's followed me down over the years.
Okay.
Yeah, so
right.
both my brothers, my parents live in Balerno now.
Do they? Right.
When my parents said they wanted to come down, because again, their social life was my rugby.
Yeah,
they were the biggest fans. They've been the most supportive parents you could possibly have. They're the most incredible people. I can count on both hands how many games they've actually missed over the years. Apart from my games in France, every other game that's been in the country, they've almost been there. They used to travel down to Rotherham and watch me. They've travelled all over the country to watch me play. And when I started playing for Curry, that became part of their social life. So they were travelling from Ellen all the way down to Balerno almost every second weekend. So it kind of made sense that everyone's gravitated down towards Edinburgh. My parents bought a house in Balerno, and that was perfect time for me to sit my dad down and say, listen, we need to sell Aberdeen. So the market was starting to die up there. It was, I don't know if you remember, but there was a time up there when people were renting renting one beds for £1,000 a month. The oil was booming, but it was obvious on paper that this was going to implode soon. I wasn't really enjoying running the business up there. I felt as if there was a big divide between both offices. The market was extremely hostile. It's quite volatile. I brought forward the idea of selling the Aberdeen business, and thankfully my dad was really keen for that as well, because they were keen to move to Edinburgh and be closer to the family than here. So long story short, I was at a black tie event in Aberdeen. I had a few too many red wines, sitting at the table, me chatting away to everyone. And the guy beside me, I was telling him, look, I'm sick to death of running a business in Aberdeen. It's not for me. I'm not enjoying it. There's a clear divide between my team in Aberdeen and my team in Edinburgh. I would love to sell my Aberdeen proposition. And he turned around to me and said, well, actually, John, I too am a letting agent, and I too would love to buy up another portfolio or two I'm looking to acquire. And long story short, about 6 weeks later, about due diligence through solicitors, and the deal was done. I'm a great believer of networking and speaking to people and being quite honest, and the deal came together. And it was only 3 months later that Aberdeen market started to die and the oil market started to fall apart, and it was the best time for us ever. So we sold the Aberdeen proposition, lump sum from that, and we reinvested that into the Central Belt. And what I thought was going to happen was I had 117 miles between me and my old man, butting heads. I thought he'd moved down and semi-retire. Instead, he bought a desk and he was 7 feet away from me for 3 years. And that's when it really hit home that, yeah, we've got a great opportunity here to start growing Cox Co, but we're both sitting across from here. And I kind of started to feel that he was becoming more Alex, my business partner, than Dad. We were fighting a lot. It was hard. I was going into work every day, and it was not enjoyable. While trying to grow what we've built now, I was constantly up against the wall with him. And I'm sure he'd probably say the same. It was difficult, and we probably hid a lot of it between us. We probably didn't tell, my partner. We probably didn't tell. I bet he didn't tell Mum everything that was going on in the office. We fought like cat and dog.
And out of interest, did that carry through into personal life, or was there a? It
was becoming. I personally felt it was starting to put a strain on our relationship. I felt it was starting to go that sort of route.
Yeah.
At the same time, we were working with a couple of business coaches. I again managed to get him to agree to spend some money and get a business coach in. Fergus King. I don't know if you've heard of Fergus before. Fergus, great guy in Edinburgh, really well known. I've got so much time. Me and Fergus, I'm very proud to call him a friend now. But back then, he was the man that made me realise the changes that were needed. We did a few days workshop with Ferg, and it became very, very clear on paper that myself and my father had two different ideas for the business. And the vision wasn't aligned. I then started to become, the realisation hit me that in the same way in the rugby, I realised that I needed to rein myself in a little bit and become a better businessman, become a bit, start learning more about business. I was a very good salesman. I was a very good mortgage broker. And what Ferg pointed out to me was, what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. I wasn't actually doing that many mortgages anymore. And I certainly wasn't doing very much lettings. I had a good lettings team and a good team of mortgage brokers. Most of my day was buying and selling property, trading property, moving off-market opportunities between my landlords, speaking with landlords who are looking to exit and helping them, assisting them with selling their property onto the next landlord. And I never even realised, but we were actually turning some serious money and selling a lot of property on an annual basis. And it wasn't even an actual formal proposition as part of the business. And that is where, again, another penny dropped. It's starting to look at the game differently, starting to realise the fact that, hold on, we're mortgage brokers and letting agents under the one roof. And we're now doing, at the time, just me, myself, we were doing over 60 or 70 sales a year, all off market, and retaining majority of that property under management. That light bulb moment kind of led on to where we are now today. It's taken a number of years, but for me, property management, the industry itself needs to change, and that was the start of it. But then for me, I've realised that, hold on, so we're managing our clients' finances and we're managing our clients' properties. So I can then clearly understand the value of the assets we have under management. I also understand how much of my clients' wealth we have under management. I know how much debt they've got against the properties, therefore I know how much equity is in those properties. And then look, it's semantics at the end of the day, but it was that massive big change of wording that we were using in the office, and trying to refine a far more sort of property investment proposition for our clients. training my team, I was training myself at the same time. I was telling them my vision. I had this vision of, if we can change the game in property management to property investment management, if we can educate our clients and our landlords about property investment and how to do it properly, getting away from the hustle, getting away from trying to buy cheap properties and rent them out, and try and turn a quick coin. Let's do it properly. A lot of my business buddies in Edinburgh at the time were wealth managers, investment managers. I started spending a lot of time with those guys and pinching ideas and asking them to share with me how they were reporting to their clients, how they were reporting on their stocks and shares portfolios, and asking them to share that information with me. And I started to bring that into Cox Co. I started to offer up a different level of reporting. So forgive me, I don't want to kind of assume that every letting agent across the whole country do it this way, but the standard generic way what letting agent does it, they provide your monthly statement. The joke's always been from a letting agency perspective, when the phone rings in the office, they all hide under their desks because they've got to do some work for their 10% management fee. I want to flip that on the head. I want to get ahead of the curve and turn property management into a far more proactive service. If we are managing our clients' assets, we're managing their property wealth, let's go off our asses and actually manage it properly. Let's go out and assess these properties. Let's go out and value these properties. Let's find the best way to ensure that we are maximising the rental achievable on these properties. Let's make sure that they are being looked after, and from a certificate perspective, from regulatory sort of perspectives in terms of just condition. And what I was finding was we had a lot of one-off landlords with one property that maybe inherited back in the day from a great aunt or whatever, and we'd phone them to tell them, look, your pool cord in your bathroom's broken. They would kick off and say, hold on, it worked when I lived there. It was like 15 years ago. That's when it hit me that I needed to recycle the portfolio. So just pre-COVID, we started making a lot of calls to a lot of our landlords. We started speaking to some of our portfolio landlords and offering the opportunity to sell their properties onto other landlords internally. And the amount of landlords, one-off landlords that said, please, how do you do that? And I said, I remember I phoned one landlord in Polwarth, around the corner from the first office that we had. I said to him, look, I love you to death. You're a great guy. We've managed your property now for 6 years, but you're a bloody awful landlord. And every time we speak to you in the office, you kick off. I said, I've valued your property for you. It's worth X. I said, if I can get that in your bank in 6 weeks' time, would you sell it? And he goes, how do you even do that, John? And I'll never forget it. He called me a warlock. He goes, you're a warlock. Like, how can you? That's magic. How can you do that? It hit home. I was like, oh my God, he doesn't even want the bloody property. Mm-hmm. So I made some calls to some of my landlord, portfolio landlords that I had in the books and said, look, there's an opportunity here. It's tenanted, it's fully furnished, it's got all the certification in place. I've got 6-7 years of due diligence behind me. I can provide you everything on a plate and it'll be yours for home report value, not a penny less, not a penny more, and we'll do a deal on it. And that's where we started to recycle our internal stock to create what we have now. I've called it a mushroom portfolio. I'm very confident in saying this, although I don't have the stats on it. I'm very confident we have the least amount of landlords for the amount of properties that we have on our books compared to any other portfolio. We've got a lot of high net worth portfolio landlords on our books.
And so the mushroom reference?
Yeah, we have. I wanted less clients, more property.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So that's how as the mushroom has become. And we've got a far smaller grouping of clients that we can now service and provide an even higher level of service because there's less clients on the books from the letting side, but then more property. So I remember meeting a very prominent business owner of a very, very large letting agency here in Edinburgh about 6 years ago. And I said to him, tell me, how many properties do you have under management? And he said, I'm about 1,000, John. And I said, great. And how many landlords do you have? And he went, bloody 999. And that's the day, again, another light bulb moment. I went home and slept well that night. I said, no, I'm on to something here. Mm-hmm. Let's refine the book. Let's refine the portfolio. Let's bring on landlords that really want to invest in property, that really buy into the proposition, buy into the idea of property investment management. Let's manage their property wealth correctly.
How important has the brand been in building that? Because I think you have a really strong brand. You mentioned it costs you a lot of money, and that's the irony is like it does. Yeah, to get, if you want to put something good, you pay for it. But that seems to have been a very strong play that people recognize the brand, people know it. how much do you think that's added to what you've been able to achieve?
Massively. So that was the whole point. When we had the little office in Polwarth, at the time it was still MAS, and MAS Property, if you will, was the name. When we launched Cox Co, and we went hell for leather. We opened up big offices in the boutique end of Thistle Street, big brash branding. It was really refined looking. It looked like it'd been around for 100 years. That was the concept idea that I wanted, was people to look at Cox Co and think, how haven't I heard of that before? And we went straight onto 4th FM, did a huge radio campaign at the time. If your lender says no, go to Cox Co. It was cheesy as hell, but it worked. Because in that first year, everybody in the game, in my opinion, were asking, well, who the hell's Cox Co? That meeting I had with that prominent letting agent business owner came off the back of that. He emailed me and said, hi, can we have a coffee? I'll never forget it, because he invited me down to his office in the West End, and I walked into his office and he went, hi, John, lovely to meet you. And we sat down and he goes, so who the are you?
Wow, okay.
And it was a pretty cool conversation, and then we warmed up. It was great, but he just genuinely wanted to bring me in to find out, who the hell is this guy that's come into the game? And again, it was, oh wow, I'm obviously doing something right here. I'm ruffling some feathers. And we were tiny. We were absolutely tiny, and we probably didn't afford that office in Thistle Street. We probably couldn't, but we got by. We made it work. I was adamant that we were going to make a big play in Edinburgh. And through my rugby contacts and my own network that I was building, I love a bit of BDing and networking and getting out there. I was spending so much time getting to know people in the industry. I already had my reputation in the financial industry from being a mortgage broker, but I really, really wanted to spend a lot of time with property guys. I'd fallen in love with property from a young age. It just made sense to kind of really push into that area. I was also getting fed up of going to financial services, black tie events and networking events, because, and it still is to this day, it's who's got the nicest suit competition. There's not real networking getting on. It's who's the biggest player in the room. Whereas I find with property, it's the opposite. People really do want to speak to each other. What I've tried to do through my last sort of 5-6 years of working with other people in property is really push home the need and desire for collaboration. I still feel that property in Edinburgh, lettings and estate agents don't collaborate enough. We should be working together. So sorry to rein myself in a wee bit. We had this letting agency and mortgage brokerage that was building a name for itself. The key then at that point was, how do I then make sure that everyone understands that we do both, and that some people don't just know us as one or the other. But through working with Ferg and that few kind of light bulb moments of realising that actually I'm selling a lot of property here, and then by recycling the portfolio, that's when the property investment proposition got off the ground, and we started to really start pushing the idea of, we are letting agents, estate agents and property investment managers. And that property investment piece was off-market sales, and starting to really try to build a name for ourselves as being one of the prominent figures in off-market sales across the country, not just Edinburgh. It was before a time now where you go into LinkedIn, every second person's a property sourcing specialist, and I'm a property guru, and it's a nonsense, and it upsets me. It really does. And I've spoken in other podcasts and been open in some videos, content I've made myself. I can't stand it. There's too many people calling themselves property professionals these days. You can't just flip a couple of flats and out of nowhere become a property investment specialist. You just can't do it. What I feel I kind of got in there first, and I feel we still at this day we're doing hundreds of properties off market on an annual basis, and a lot of it's just not known. People don't know what's going on, and I love that. 3-4 years ago, probably just pre-COVID, was when it was really starting to hit home that we had this off-market piece. The letting agency was building and building and building. The mortgage brokerage was really strong. I started to realise that, hold on, I need people to know what we're doing more. I wanted to start coming into the light a little bit. Neil, my director of new businesses, came on board with me about 2.5 years ago. He made this joke, and during his actual second or third interview with me, he said, John, you're like the Batman of property in Edinburgh. He goes, everyone knows who you are, but no one knows a bloody clue what you do. And he goes, if I join you, let's come into the light. Let's become the Superman of property. Let's go do this together. And it's been the most enjoyable journey ever since Neil's joined me, because that's when I felt on paper we finally had the proposition correct. It was all starting to come together. Let's go bloody tell everybody. Let's go tell everyone what we do and how good we are at it. Because it's interesting, Alan, you mentioned to me before that you thought of us as estate agents, but we actually only launched the estate agency proposition 13 months ago. So we've only been officially selling houses in the open market for 13 months.
Yeah.
And it's blown up.
Yeah.
In less than a year, our market share is strong. We're doing some real good volume. I've got a wonderful team of property brokers, estate agents in the office, and that's brand new to me. I find it so exciting.
So tell me this, and if you looking back, and this is permission to boast here, what would you say, are the things that have given you the success or built the success that you've kind of got to date? If you were to kind of distill it down to, let's say, 3 things, what would you say? I know, I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, the company's, one of our mantras or, mission statements, honesty, integrity and accountability. Those are the 3 things that the business is built upon. And me and my director's suite that we've got just now, that's what we talk about almost on a daily basis. We've made some mistakes in the past, and we did it by a shoestring a lot of times. And when myself and my dad were butting heads back in the day and trying to grow this, we were doing it, robbing Peter to pay Paul. I didn't know any different. I just assumed this is the way you run a business. We made some mistakes early on, but we were getting by. We made okay money, but we weren't, tucking away loads in the bank. Nothing was kind of going. It was good. We had a good wee business, but it wasn't like flying behind the scenes. We were faking it till you can make it, that sort of thing, in some ways. And I thought that was the way to do it. And the day I changed that and said, no, let's be really brutally honest with what we're doing and what we're capable of. Let's be far more accountable in terms of company's finances, in terms of how we run the business, how we pay people. Our B2B relationships, let's look at those. Let's cut out some dead wood. From a lettings perspective, let's get rid of some of the contractors that we're working with. We know for a fact they're maybe not that good, but they're cheap. Let's stop that. From a brokering perspective, let's not use these guys over here, these conveyancers, because although they're giving us a decent kickback, they're pretty rubbish. Stuff like that. I sat down and started to really refine the business. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I will. I went through a really bad divorce. I was with my ex for 14 years, married for 2. And there was a lot of problems there. Today's not to go into that too deep, but I was playing at being business guy, rugby player, big name in town, George Street, drinking at weekend, everything's great. It wasn't. It was bloody awful. Behind closed doors, I was not happy. I was trying to fake it until you make it, goodness, I wasn't really quite going to go into that, but it was really affecting me. I didn't like what I was becoming. I didn't like that we weren't as honest on paper as I wanted us to be. I didn't feel I was never going to get the growth I wanted without just putting it all out there. So I started to really push to make these changes in the business, left my ex, and very, very quickly settled down with who's now my wife and mother to our 2 wonderful children. Up sticks, packed up the bag, stopped living in the centre of Edinburgh, moved to the Borders, now live in Peebles, been there for now 5 years. And since doing all of that, life has changed. It's just flipped. Life is good because I live a very honest life. I live a very open, honest life full of accountability and integrity. I live by it. Tough times. It was making massive changes, falling out with the old man, leaving my ex, lost a lot of friends, left rugby at the time, stopped playing for Curry, under a bit of a cloud. They didn't understand it. The club didn't understand it at all. I still don't think they understand it. And
was there a point of realisation, or was this just building up to a moment of realisation of the fake it till you make it and a change?
Like a crescendo. It all started to get too much. I wasn't enjoying it.
Can you remember, was there a moment though, like a day that you think, actually buggered it, that's it?
I wouldn't say there was a set day. I think
maybe not, but
I run everything calendar years, and there was a Christmas whereby I sat down and thought, you know what? I'm not very happy here. I'm not happy at home. I'm not happy with the business. I'm not happy working with my dad the way I want Dad back. I felt like I couldn't really be honest with my mum. I'm speaking to her, but I'd occasionally try and bring up things at work and with her, and she would have my dad's back a bit more, or it was difficult. It was just not fun. I was living a bit of a lie in my relationship I was in previously. I hope she can see that now. But the business, what we have today, we've got a serious niche Serious niche. There's nobody else in Scotland, nobody that has this 4-pillar approach to have a true turnkey service in property. There's nobody else that has it. They might let a property and do a bit of mortgages. They might sell a house and a bit of mortgage, a bit of lettings, but nobody has it all under the one roof that we have. I had that vision back then. I felt I couldn't get it off the ground. I was butting heads with my dad. I felt I wasn't very happy at home. I felt there was a lot of that sort of things. I felt we were working with a lot of like I just mentioned there, solicitors I didn't want to work with, contractors and so on. I remember once a contractor came into the office, a tradesman, who I won't mention his name, but he walked in and I knew the lettings team didn't enjoy when he came to the office to collect keys. Couldn't stand working with the guy. And he walked in, I heard him before I saw him, because he was mouthing off at the guys in the office, not happy about not getting paid something or nipping it. So when I walked through and I said, is everyone okay? And he goes, yeah. I said, right, okay, cool. If you just leave the keys, that'd be great. And he goes, I will do this. And as he was about to leave, he says, by the way, we're never going to work with you again. And in front of, like, at the time, with 10 staff, they all kind of stopped. And he looked at me and he goes, why no? I says, because I don't like you and my team don't like you. We don't like how you run your business and we're never going to work together again. Now, please leave. And he walked out and the room just went, oh God, that's great, John. Why didn't we do that ages ago?
Yeah.
And that was the start of it from a business perspective. I have this ridiculous personal mantra about adders, subtractors, dividers, and multipliers. And any of my friends or colleagues watching this or listening to this are all going to be going, oh God, John, here he goes. I want to work with adders. I want to spend my time with people that enjoy their company. I want to always have that positive feeling. And not everything in life is easy. It's not. But I want to do it with good people. I want to spend time with good people. I have good friends. You've then got the subtractors when you walk into, how you doing? Oh, I'm so all right. And you spend too much time with those subtractors. They're just eating away at you. You've then got those dividers that are even worse. And that was what like that tradesman was. He literally just destroying the aura in the room when they walk in, like a Harry Potter Dementor. And we all know them as being prepared to be strong enough to cut them out. And then we've all got that couple of multipliers. Those guys that walk into the room and they just blow you up. You're excited to see them, whether they be friends or guys in business or whoever it might be. Everyone has multipliers in their lives. I want to be a multiplier, and I want to bring a team of multipliers together. And that's what I live by. That I live by that. I want people to want to spend time with me. I want people to want to do business with Cox Co.
Yeah,
I find that so it gets me out of bed in the morning. I want to be a multiplier.
Love it. I've never heard that before, but I'll be stealing that one. That'll be an Alan Smithism quite soon.
Good. You can have it.
Yeah, a little
I can have it. I'll send my invoice in the month.
It's got nothing to do with John Cox. Excellent. I love that. And again, just on that point, what you're building good networks and building good team spirit as well at Cox Co. So I mean, there's a few angles that are maybe linked here, kind of collaboration and partnership and team. Go and just kind of give us your angle on that space. I'm MD of a business that does very well for itself, but I still occasionally have to go out and buy the toilet roll. I'm hands-on. I want to be a part of this. I'm the captain, not the coach. I do not micromanage. My team will testify. They get 90% autonomy on a daily basis. I've got no part-time staff, no trainees. They're all full-time professionals, big boys and girls, very good at what they do. So bugger off and go get on with it. And let's talk, have collaboration meetings. Come together, let's work together, but you're on your book. And I'm going to show you my book at the same time. And every quarter we're going to sit down, we're going to look at our successes together. I'm going to show you the company P&L. I'm going to show you what we're doing together. Let's all sit down and build this together. And thankfully, they've all bought in. We've had a few bumps in the road. We've had a few team members that, again, have had to be shown the door throughout. I was always the guy that was hiring and firing for Cox Co, even right back in the day. And I used to ask my dad to even get rid of some brokers right back when I was 23, 24. Let me go into that room and deal with it. And you go, okay. And you go, no bother. I wanted to get that experience because it's difficult and it's not fun. So out of interest, when you fire people, do you go into the room and say, look, I don't like you, the team don't like you? Get back.
Thankfully not. No, look, I'm comfortable having difficult conversations. I'm very comfortable with it.
Honest.
I'm a very honest, very direct person now. It's taken a long time to train myself to become that person. I still get that horrible feeling, and the hairs stick up and you get that horrible feeling in your stomach going into these sorts of things, but I take it on head on. I deal with it. I've had to provide summary dismissals in the past to very, dishonest members of staff. I've had to do that. I've had to let people go in the past during COVID when we didn't know where the world was going. I've been through some very difficult decisions and firing or letting people go. It's never fun. But I'm the leader. I'm the boss. I'll happily throw myself into these things if it's needed, and I'll deal with it the best way I possibly can. So to go back to your point about team and collaboration, I'm a rugby player, and I always will be. I want to run the best team possible, and I want to win. I'm a nightmare for it. I just want to win at everything I do. My sister-in-law refuses to play board games with me at Christmas time now. Refuses, point blank. I want to win. Can't help myself. And that's the way I've always been. Thankfully, through my rugby career, even though I never got those heights in the big run at Murrayfield that I wanted, I've won more games than I've lost. I've had a very successful rugby career. Playing with Curry during their best period of a decade, we'd won more games than we lost. In my whole career, I've won more games than I've lost. I want to build a business where we win more than we lose. Our conversion rates are really high because I've got a great team of professionals. They're allowed to go out and pitch their way. They're allowed to go and be comfortable and do it their way. As long as they're bringing the deals in and we've got our processes and so on in place in-house, kick on, go do your thing. I don't really interview. I grab a coffee or a cup of tea and we go for a chat. I interviewed a guy yesterday for 2.5 hours. It's madness. But we both walked out and it wasn't really a handshake, it was like a fist bump. And he's joining me next month and I can't wait.
Great.
Can't wait. I'm not interested in formalities. We don't run KPIs at Cox Co. Don't want it. Instead, we've got a deal bell where we celebrate our successes on a daily basis. But with that comes back to the 3 main points: honesty, accountability, integrity. You make a mistake, let's fess up about it. Let's all talk about it. Let's work it out. Let's be accountable for our actions. Let's carry ourselves with so much integrity. I had a rugby coach called Greco Hogg. Greco played rugby for Scotland. Hardest man I know. He was from Hawick. He was a winger, but he was a forwards coach as he got older. And he just scared the death out of everybody. And I lived for a decade wanting to... I wanted his approval. Lived for his approval. And one of the things he used to always say about, those old school British Lions videos that people would watch, the Jim Telfer era, that he played with those sorts of guys. And all of these sort of little things he used to say to the team have always stuck with me. Can you look yourself in the mirror after a day at work and really know that you've done your best? I bring all that into my office. I really stand by it. I say, guys, come in here, give it your all. If you're squared away by 4 and you want to go for a beer, go for a beer. You got a tee off time, go and have the tee off time. Get your shit done. Get your work done. And then we can all enjoy it together. We'll celebrate our successes. But that kind of old jigsaw analogy, you've got that. I've got 14 in the team in total, 14-piece jigsaw. And if you put all 14 pieces together on the table right now, in theory, you should be able to pick up that jigsaw and it'll hold. But if you miss one piece of that jigsaw, it'll fall apart. And the jigsaw analogy is a big one for me. We're a team, we're going places. Come on the journey with me, let's go. I says, but stick with the honesty, accountability, integrity, and we're going to go far. Sorry, I'm getting myself a bit...
You can see the passion.
Yeah. I mean, we ask all our guests about their guiding principle, but I think that's it, right?
Has to be. We've made mistakes in the past. We went through the tough times. I'm still probably tidying up some of that mess that we've had in the past. We're not perfect, but we are very good at what we do, and we all enjoy it, and that passion flows throughout the office. So you then mentioned collaboration, and that's probably the other area of the business that I'm just as passionate about. Is I believe that if we share clients, we'll share fees. That's the way I say it. I say it to everybody: share clients, share fees. The reason why we moved into a estate agency is, one, because we're good at it. We're very, very good at selling off-market properties. It made sense to move into open market sales. But I believe, genuinely, in the same way that I think the lettings game still needs to change, I believe the sales market needs to change. We run a broker model, a commission-based broker model, an American realtor Dubai property agent model, which the traditionalists in a estate agency will shun. And they'll say, oh my God, why are they doing that? It's because it bloody well works. There's a need for estate agents to be more buying and selling agents than just, I'll list your house on Rightmove for you and hopefully it sells. The world that we live in now, it's so much more difficult to get financing. It's so much more difficult to get on the property ladder. The cost of houses these days, it's madness. I know that. It's crazy. My property brokers, our estate agents, are trained in what I call holistic fact-finding. Everybody in Cox Co is trained in holistic fact-finding. When we meet with clients, we want to get to know them. We want to sit down and go through. I've been fact-finding as a mortgage broker for 19 years, so I understand fact-finding. So I've trained everybody in my team to do it in a holistic fashion, whereby it's conversation, taking notes, still go in there with a pad of paper and a pen, get to know the client, get to know what their hopes, dreams, desires, what they're actually wanting from their property requirements. By doing that, it's amazing how much business and cross-selling that we do as a business, how much we are helping our clients at a far different level than our competitors. If I can manage your properties and manage your finances and sell your house and find a buyer for your place and then source the house that you're going to move on to, and help the purchaser of your house with their lending, and then out of nowhere the buyer of their house needs to sell their house and we help them, and so on and so on. We're like trying to control the chains. That doesn't happen anywhere else. I want to sit down with our sellers and really help them with their finances, their insurance, their structuring of their buy-to-let portfolios, making sure that's all tied up correctly. I want to help tenants get on the ladder. There's nothing I love more than when a tenant phones in and goes, hi, can I actually book in a mortgage appointment because I want to get on the property ladder myself. Cox & Co.'s mission statement, our North Star, if you will, it's providing good homes to good people. And everything else comes back off of that. It does. Yeah, I like making money. It's great. And I want to win with everything. I've already said that. But ultimately, I'm a property geek. I love mortgages. I love red tape. I like being FCA regulated. I love all that. I love the fact that lettings is now regulated. And I shout from the rooftops about how I cannot wait for the day for a state agency to become formally regulated. It needs to happen. Cut out all the cowboys. I'm sick fed up of them. We have a gold standard business and we run things correctly. Dot all the I's, cross all the T's. Really good platform, as I call it. I just wish everybody else was doing the same. And if everybody can do the same and we can all work together, then we're all going to do so much more business. If I take on, I'll be really open here. If I take on a basement flat in the new town, we get that instruction to sell that. I want my team to go and phone Savills. Go phone Retties. Because that's normally their market. Go phone them and say, hey, we've taken on that instruction. Have you got any buyers? And I want that to become the norm. I want them to turn around to me and say, yeah, we've got a buyer for that. Let's. I'll take a buyer fee, you take a seller fee, and everyone's a winner. And the property hasn't even gone to the market. How good would that be for you, the consumer? I want that to happen. I want these other agents to phone me and say, John, have you got somebody for this? Yes, we do. Great. Get everybody moving. Get the game moving. That's what happens in other countries. Why don't we do it? It's that bloody typical UK mentality of, oh, it's mine, or can I speak to you? It's a nonsense. Share clients, share fees. Cox and collaboration.
Look at that. Oh, a great end.
Great place. John, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, and we wish you all the luck in the future.
Amazing,
Thank you
John.
so much.
Well done.
Thanks for having me.